What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fudge Muppet. I'm Scott, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite places in video game worlds, Morrowind. Now, you know I'm a big Dunmer fan. I love my Dark Elves, and while Morrowind is considered by many to be one of the best RPGs out there, best open world RPGs, obviously there's limitations to its gameplay and stuff that do affect the modern player, and the modern player has a lot of hard time. But I'm here to tell you, as a little celebratory, 15th anniversary kind of thing, that was a few weeks ago, why Morrowind is just one of the greatest Elder Scrolls games and sort of game worlds, period, that, in my opinion, that exist for you to play in. And I've got a little bit of bias here. I do love the Dark Elves, but I have to say, Morrowind as a whole is just one of the most alien, unique, and just incredibly wonderful game worlds that you can ever put yourself in. It's just, they dry ride around on silt striders, which are just basically giant ticks. There's floating jellyfish around the place. There's legalized assassinations through the Morag Tong. There's the great houses. House Redoran that lives in a giant crab. There's Telvanni that live in these big mushroom tower wizards with all their slaves of Khajiit and Argonian and various other species. It's just one of the craziest, most unique worlds that I've ever been in. And when you compare that to Oblivion, which is pretty standard fare medieval society, or you compare that to Skyrim, which is essentially Vikings plus dragons and magic. Not that I'm ripping on those. I did like Skyrim and Cyrodiil a lot, but in terms of just atmosphere and the world that was built and the lore, I find Morrowind to be the most alien, but the most unique and cohesive. It's just so dense and interesting. When you compare, say, Skyrim, there's the main conflict of the Imperials, the Empire, versus the Stormcloaks, and there's the various Jarls and stuff that support either side, and each sort of city is unique in aesthetic, but in terms of political structure, or they're basically just either pro-Stormcloak or they're either pro-Imperial. And beyond that, there's Companions and the College of Winterhold, which is pretty isolated. They're all very isolated from the main factions. None of them are heavily integrated, and they don't really interact with each other. And then you've got your Dark Brotherhood and your Thieves Guild and stuff, and that's all good. But just by comparison, you walk in to Morrowind, and you've got lots of factions that you might not necessarily agree with every single thing they say or do. You've got House Telvanni, which are the super powerful wizard house that live in their mushroom towers, and they love their slavery. But God, they're powerful, and you can join them, and you can work your way up the ranks, and it's pretty damn cool. But then you've also got another guild, the Mages Guild, which is the Imperial version of a magic faction, which is spread across all of Tamriel, and that's the Imperial sanctioned guild. And then you've got the Fighters Guild, and then you've got House Redoran, which is the very traditional, honor-bound Dunmer people, and then you've got Ashlanders sitting out there over in the Ash Plains, and they don't like the Tribunal of Living Gods, and they're based all around the old ways of the Chimer. And then you've got House Hlaalu, which is actually a Dunmer house which is benefiting from the Imperials and really going all in with their alliance and the new trade opportunities and really integrating themselves into the Empire, much to the dismay of the other houses. You've got the Tribunal itself, and you've got these living gods that are sort of governing society, and then you've got, on top of that, those really sick Ordinators. They're fucking voices and their masks. They're just one of the coolest guards, and they seem intimidating, and they don't fucking like you at the start, at the very least. They're really, really fucking gnarly looking, and they're guardians of the temple. And then the temple itself, worshipping the Tribunal, has its dissident priests, and it has this internal conflict going on. There's a lot of internal conflict going on in every single house and area of Morrowind. You can join the Morag Tong, which is actually a faction of assassins, legally sanctioned, mind you, to carry out executions with a legal writ to keep the houses from going into all-out war by using a proxy, which is the Morag Tong assassins. Where else do you get that kind of thing in a world? It's just so interesting and crazy. You can't pinpoint the influences. If I was to say, what's Skyrim influenced by? Vikings, of course. It's all Viking stuff, with bits of Celtic stuff thrown in as well. Then it's Cyrodiil. What's that? basically it's medieval and with Roman influences, and there's mild stuff about the lore and differences, of course. Like, I'm making big generalizations, but how do you generalize Morrowind? People will say there's Arabian influences and Middle Eastern influences, and then there's also a lot of Asian influences. Then there's also Indian influences, especially in their religion and likening it to Hindu religions. And then it's just got this whole alien overlay to it all, which has got you like the bone mold armor, and then you're walking around towns that basically look like Tatooine or something. Like, it's just so interesting. And then you've got ash storms going on, and you've got scribs and quama and guars and all of this unique wildlife. No cows, no pigs, no standard-ass real-life creatures. You've really got every single element of their society, down to the egg miners and the salt rice plantations and the slaves that run them. It's just everything is very unique and purposely put in, and it creates this economy, this atmosphere, culture, and all these factions and politically motivated individuals that all converge in this one huge awesome world. Now, this is also a bit of a fucking Morrowind wank, I'm telling you. If you really hate Morrowind for whatever reason, this isn't the video for you. But it really is a prime example of world building. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I'm not even doing justice, so not saying certain things. Like, there's parts that I will forget to say in this video, but it's just endless. The list of cool stuff is endless. Now, admittedly, the combat system is flawed, and obviously the text-based system, while has its advantages and gives you obviously more depth in ways than the other games, it also is pretty just repetitive. You just go, oh, click on Morrowind lore, and then NPC gives you the same generic answer. And, you know, these are flaws of the time. But in terms of the actual world, it's just, I mean, you, the character, the protagonist, are the Nerevarine. And if you look at the history that is involved with that, and just the complexity of, like, the sermons of Vivec, and how Vivec and Almalexia and Sotha Sil actually got divine power, and whether they actually murdered Nerevar, or whether he really did die in battle. And there are just so many conflicting stories, and from told by individuals, just like real history. And it sort of leaves you, the player, to really just have to decide yourself which one is the most convincing and which one has the most evidence. Especially with some graphics mods on like I have here. I have never been in a game and then just constantly been in awe of even just the most little town with these little shacks. But it's this little town with the shacks, and then they've got this sort of Asian-y style boat, I guess, but then it's got like this Telvanni grown little loop at the end with the lantern, and then there's these little cute shacks, and then they've got their one center building made out of this clay bony stuff, and then they've got their carpet rugs laid down, and the Dunmer sit there atop running their towns in these swamps. And then you go to another town and it's like they're living inside a giant emperor crab, and you go in there's council halls, and it's just really alien feeling. And that's what's nice. Like, a lot of fantasy is really grounded in real life stuff, and that's not a bad thing, but they don't really go crazy anymore, or really, really out there. And it's not so out there that you don't feel like it's real or you don't care about it. It feels very grounded. Like, you feel like it's a believable world. Every single element that exists there interacts with each other, and it's believable in the way that they do. If you really look at the Elder Scrolls series, Daggerfall as well, but Morrowind has added so much of the lore that you love, so much of the background information that has just really fleshed out the Elder Scrolls world. Like the complex history with the Dwemer, and then the first Chimer coming, and then how that Chimer became the Dunmer, and then their interactions with the Nords on the left in Skyrim coming over. Then you've got the heretic Daedra worshippers, and then you've got the Ashlanders themselves that worship the old three Daedra, the good Daedra they used to worship, and then the ones that worship the Tribunal, which is the mainstream society. And I mean, they've literally got things like a giant evil god called Dagoth with all his ash creatures and ash vampires, all living in this one fucking mountain that's blocked off by the ghost fence because it stops all these blight creatures coming out and attacking the rest of Morrowind, because the gods put the ghost fence there to try and keep him sealed in. He's basically the devil itself. And I mean, if you go into the actual storyline, I don't want to spoil too much, but it gets crazy, and it's just so... Look, I don't know how to put it into words a lot of time. A lot of time, it's just a feeling. I mean, you just have to look at what I'm showing you on the video, just these different areas, and I constantly, personally, feeling just excited by every little town I see, or I go into the Ashlander camp, and there's little wind chimes and stuff going in the Dark Elves, and then you learn from them all about their point of view and what happened. It's just, fuck, it's just so cool, and I just wish that the next Elder Scrolls really has this kind of environment. Like, if we were to go to Valenwood, I really want them to hone in on the cannibalism stuff. I really want them to hone in on the really creepy alien sort of elements of the Bosmer culture. Don't just wash it over with some elven sort of stereotypical kind of feel. Like, you've made these elves super unique, so like, run with it, you know? I just want to see that alien stuff again, the one that makes you just want to keep coming back. And trust me, I am not saying Morrowind is without its flaws. I mean, playing it does take those few times where you've got to get back into it, and it's like, oh, fuck, my walking speed's like fucking 2. Like, it's ridiculous. And there's some things that just feel old by comparison, especially like the not having a map marker. When you've been accustomed to these new conveniences of the more modern games, it sort of feels a little jarring, and it's like, oh, fuck, what's this? I gotta find it, but it doesn't lead you to exploration. But especially at the start of the game when you're in these slow walking speeds, while it does have the benefit of really drawing you into the world and you really have to see, and it encourages you to see a lot of the world, it does get a little boring walking through these just barren lands sometimes, trying to find this particular mine or tomb. But once again, that's like this small part of it. So much of the... Man, it's just so good. And I mean, Vivec is one of the most complex gods, and Almalexia and Sothosil are so cool. And the DLCs are pretty cool too. I just think it's one of the most unique possible lands, and I highly, highly recommend you go play it. I mean, this has just been one giant wank over Morrowind, but really, I just love it so much, and I just find it's just... so crazy good. I really recommend you go play it. Or, you know what? At the very least, go into the game, put God mode on, put acrobatics at 100, athletics at 100, speed at 100, and then just run around the entire map and then just see everything visually. And I guarantee if you just go and see everything visually, you'll probably want to really give it a shot playing it, because visually it's just one of the most interesting, and man, I could talk for days and just go in circles and circles and circles, but anyway, I think I've talked your ear off now, but the point of this video was to celebrate Morrowind's 15th anniversary. I know it's like a week late or something, but still, I think it's just as relevant. I really just want to put out some Morrowind awareness there. Morrowind Awareness Week, guys. So anyways, I'm Scott from Fudge Muppet. I will see you next time, and go play Morrowind.